Hey guys, in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to UV unwrap in Maya. Now UV unwrapping is essentially the last step in your 3D modeling phase, as it is getting the model ready to apply a texture to it. I like to explain it as if you were adding cuts to your model to then unfold it like a piece of paper and then drawing the texture onto this piece of paper, and then the 3D modeling software then folds it back up and puts it like a normal model. First step in making sure that you're able to UV unwrap is by changing your workspace in Maya, or by coming up to UV and then opening the UV editor. But I like to change my workspace as it allows me to view the model as well as the UV editor at the same time without having to use multiple displays. Now, when you first start UV unwrapping, it might be tempting to use the automatic mapping, but it is not a good idea to use the automatic UV tool, as it is going to project from all the different views and then make your UV based off of that. It can be very time consuming to then remap this whole model, as you'll have to go through, select an edge and then move it together, and it's very time consuming. The easiest way to do it is by doing a planar map rather than a automatic. So planar is essentially going to project from one side only. So for example, it's actually going to be this one right here. So it's just going to project this side here, instead of doing all different sides and then giving you different faces for each UV and such. So when you're UV unwrapping, you want to make the seams for your UV as invisible as possible. So I like to do, it's a bit hard with a sphere or like a cylindrical shape like this one, because you're going to have to put a seam down the middle here, down the side. But down the bottom, what you want to do for a cylindrical shape is select the bottom by double clicking the edge. So try that again, double clicking the edge. And then I'm going to want to double click this edge here. So that's what that's going to do. As you can see here in wireframe, it's selected the whole base, and then it's gone up and back around the top and then in like that. So it's done a full loop selection. And then I can come over to the side here. So initially it's going to be like this. So under cut and sew, I'm going to click cut. Then I'm going to hold right click and then go to UV shell, which is going to allow me to select the UV, and then come underneath unfold. I'm going to do a process of unfolding and optimizing and going back and forth like that. As you can see, it's automatically seamed all of the edges together, and there's no need to go back and forth with like the automatic selection. So these faces here, these are actually the inside of the model. If your model is not going to be having a texture on the inside, there is no need to unwrap these. So what I like to do is just select them and then delete them. So what that's going to do, there's not going to be a texture applied to the inside of the model now. This is also the inside of the texture, so if I just delete that as well. Now, one thing you got to look out for here is, as you can see down the bottom here, this is actually the base of our model. So I'm just going to unfold and optimize that one. And then as you can see, it's just this tiny little thing down here. So if I just select that and then hold shift and then right click and then go to layout and layout UV, that's just going to make it fit to the size here. As you can see, it's not quite connected in the middle. So if I just click that edge there, it's going to automatically select the other edge that is corresponded to in the model. So as you can see, there's only one edge here, but if you hold right click and shift at the same time, it's going to bring up this option and then move and sew edges. Then select the UV shell again, just going to move that over, unfold and optimize. It's going to make it a perfect circle. Next, I'm going to select edge, and I'm just going to find an edge in the middle here. Actually, we'll do one over the edge here. And if I hold shift and right click again and move and sew it, and then you select the UV shell and then unfold and optimize. I'm just going to optimize it until this edge here is a straight edge. As you can see here, this is actually gone through. So if I move and sew those edges together and then optimize and unfold, actually if I so what I'm going to do instead, I'm just going to put it in the middle of the UV, so that way it does something like that. As you can see, I've got this edge here as straight as possible. In order to see what the UV is going to look like, if you come up to the top here and then select the checker map, that's going to bring it up. And if you want to see what the checker map is in the UV editor, if you click the image next to it, it's going to display the image. But I usually keep that off. And as you can see, our UV, there's no distortion or anything like that. But in order to get a good texture on it, you want to make sure that it is a straight up and down grid and not across like this. So if I just rotate that, and then if I go layout UV, that's going to fit it inside of this square. When you're UV unwrapping, you want to try and keep your UV inside of this 1x1 grid down the bottom. As you can see, it's given us a pretty good and even grid across our model. Now for this one here, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm just going to planar view it again, and then instead of adding a seam, I'm just going to go unfold and optimize. So what that's done, it's just flattened it out, and because it's really only this here, it's going to be a pretty simple UV. Alright, and then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select our next object, which is the handle here. I'm going to planar view it again. I'm going to go into edge mode, and I'm going to hold left click and drag to select the bottom circle like shape here. And then if I hold control, it's going to drag over this, it's going to deselect these ones here. And I'm going to do the same with this one over here. As you can see, that's selected the base here. So if I shift click on one of these ones here, so that way it gives me almost like a connection between the shapes. And if I hold shift and double click on one of the lines here, it's going to do it all the way around the model over here. And then if I cut that, then go to UV shell and then unfold and optimize. As you can see, that's flattened out that image and given us a pretty good UV on that one. Next, you want to select your whole model once you've UV'd unwrapped everything, and then select all the UVs again, and then hold shift and right click and then go layout and layout UVs. Essentially what that's going to do is going to lay out the UV maps and into the one square, and keeps the same grid size across the whole model. If you're wanting to put this UV texture into a program like Photoshop or something like that, you want to export your image. You can do this by coming up to image and then UV snapshot. That's going to bring up a window like this, and then choose your file location, and then if you come under here, you want to make it a PNG. Next, you want to change your edge color to something, I like to do something that's a bit bright and a color that's not going to be in your model texture. I like to do like a magenta, and then if you apply and close, and that's going to save it as a PNG, and then you can take that into Photoshop, apply your texture, and then apply the texture inside of Maya. I hope this tutorial has helped you guys, and I hope to see you in my next one.